Okay, welcome to Running Book Reviews with Alan and Liz. We hope you're going to enjoy this installment. I think we're both pretty excited about it. The book we're going to cover is called Running Rewired by Dicharry. And I know Liz is pretty excited about this book. When she received it, I think it was for Christmas, she was all like a dog with two tails, as we say. So, Liz, are you there and ready to talk about this book?
I'm ready. I really enjoyed this book.
So the book's actually called Running Rewired. Brackets, reinvent your run for stability, speed, and strength. So first of all, we'll talk about what is the book, overview, how does it work, who's Dicharry, and then we'll go through the book in some detail and pick it apart. And then, as usual, we'll give our views on the book and what we think of it, and what we think's good, what we think's bad, whether we recommend it to you. And then you can decide whether to go out and maybe get a copy and read it for yourself, or thank us for avoiding reading a book that you didn't want to read. So either way, it's a good thing. And we'll give it some stars at the end. We give everything really good ratings because we generally love running books. But
We do.
We'll give you your info. Okay, so you want to tell us a bit about Dicharry? If you is that how you pronounce his name, Dicharry?
So I think it's Dicharry from what I've heard on podcasts, because I don't think I was pronouncing it right at first, because I thought it was Dicharry and then Dicharry. So
if Dicharry's listening to our podcast, we apologize.
Yes, I'm very sorry about that. I mean, I really tried. So so on the other podcasts that where I found out about this book, I re-listened to it, and it's Dicharry, and he's apparently I think he's a researcher, but I think he's also a physiotherapist. He has he works with a lot of elite athletes in the US, and he helps them sort of like fix the things about their running form.
He has a super duper biomechanics lab, I think.
That he does, apparently, with some super duper treadmill that's you know, for a while I think that treadmill was the only one. I don't remember if it was the only one in the US, like he was the only lab in the US that had it, or the only lab on the whole North American continent, but there was something special about this treadmill.
Yeah, it was instrumented, so it could get a lot of data about all kinds of mobility issues. And I believe it was the only one outside of the military at his lab in Bend, Oregon.
Yes, that sounds...
Yeah, I made some notes.
So
how did you hear about Dicharry to begin with?
I listened to a few podcasts, though I can't remember if this was from the podcast, because there's this podcast called The Science of Sport. And they talk a lot about running, but they do talk about other sports and like research in sport.
I'll tell you where I first heard him, when I read Kicksology, because there's a little section in the middle of Kicksology, which is another great book. Listen to our podcast on that if you haven't, which talks about technical stuff and references a conversation with a biomechanics guru who turns out to be Dicharry. So that was where I first heard about him.
Okay, yeah, no, it was definitely, I've discovered a lot of books through podcasts, which is why I really like listening to them. So it was either in that podcast or maybe it was Tina Muir, because those are the ones that I listen to the most.
Tina Mio has a great podcast.
She
Shouldn't give other
does.
people ads for their podcasts, but they're all great. Okay, so the book Running Rewired. What's the idea of the book?
So the idea of the book is that it's kind of like an instruction manual on how to self-diagnose.
That's running instruction manual. Left foot,
It's
right foot, left foot, right foot, rinse.
so not exactly.
Okay.
So it's more like an instruction manual to fix your broken running form is what it kind of is.
Okay.
There is a lot of explanation, so he does a really good like the first part is basically he's trying to sell you why you should care about your running form.
That's kind of the rationale piece.
Exactly.
In the beginning.
And just a funny aside, so
Yeah.
actually my previous running coach, he didn't believe in running form at all. Like he's a
Okay.
great coach in many ways, does a lot of
Okay.
he's done a lot of courses and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of things he'll integrate into his plans come from all different places. But for some reason he was like, no, just run more and the running form will
Take care of itself.
take care of itself. So
Yeah.
actually Jay Dicharry would not agree.
Okay. Yeah, my understanding about Jay is really, he says most people are running their plan B. That's kind of what he says. They're not running their optimal plan. Runners traditionally have like weak glutes or bad hips or
Limited range of motion.
wonky ankles or something like that, and they're running to compensate some of those things. And he's looking to really show you how to get out of that, which is not that easy.
No, it's not.
And get to your A game in terms of your running form.
Yeah, and he actually says that in the book that it's not easy, and it's like anything else. At first, it's going to be a conscious effort, but yeah, he sort of does a really good job of going through a lot of the things that could be going wrong. So even with the feet, the hips, because it's not that every runner has the same problem. Like sometimes it's range of motion. So it's really neat because he does these little diagnosing, kind of self-diagnosing little tests that you can do. And it'll give you sort of three options. If this is happening, this is the problem. And then you'll have like two other, like if this is happening, that's the problem. So that's
so it's a customization thing. It doesn't say, yeah, everybody should do X. It says you should do these tests on your mobility, for example. And if you find A, you should do these exercises. If you find B, you should do these exercises.
And there was at one point there was something about the way that you I think it's I don't remember if it's the way that you you move your foot and leg or the way that your foot lands or something, but that apparently is a little bit personal, and so it's more of a test to know what you do exactly and know like what's your normal. So that was kind of interesting too. I wish I could remember what that test was. I think you had mentioned that you did that one.
Was that the one where you stand on the ground and press your knee to the wall, or where you put your toe down and lift your other toes? But there were several tests like that, and then you get some exercises accordingly.
Yep. Yeah, you always get exercises accordingly.
The idea, I think, is that he says, you're not actually born to run. We must do a review on Born to Run.
Yes, we should.
That's an aside. You're not actually born to run. He says that if I remember rightly, the beautiful Kenyans that we see, they're actually adapted to run. and some of us are less well adapted than those beautiful Kenyans, and we can work on adapting ourselves to be better. He talks in the rationale at the front. He talks a bit about all of this, why he's doing all of this work, and talks about the pressures that you put yourself under when you're running, which I found quite shocking. Do you remember the bit about how much weight you put on yourself when you're running?
Let's see. Yeah, so I think it said 150-pound person generates 375 pounds of vertical pressure. It's 250%.
So that's like 2.5 times gravity every time you put your foot down.
Which is crazy.
No wonder we get ourselves injured.
Yeah. And then there's also 15% of your weight as lateral pressure, and then 40 to 50% of your weight in decelerating and accelerating. So it's not just the vertical, which is basically gravity, but it's the other forces as well. So that'll explain why people get injured a lot in running.
So he goes through this in the rationale, and then comes up with how to develop a game plan. So the idea being, I think that if you have a plan B because you have some running imperfection, let's say, I don't know, a mobility problem or something, you can diagnose that, and then you can stop doing that. Like you can remove a blockage or something like that. But in fact, what he says is what happens is your brain just keeps behaving how it used to, as if your blockage was still there. So then you have to have a whole series of exercises to train your brain to recognize, to behave differently now that it doesn't have a muscle block or a mobility problem.
Which is really interesting.
That comes in towards the end with all the programs that he prescribes for you.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I think he mentions it at some point, that just pure stretching doesn't really work. Like, let's say you wanted to increase your range of motion, so you start to do a lot of stretching, and maybe you'll be very flexible, but it doesn't mean that it'll translate into more range of motion when you're running. Which, yeah.
So all that stretching that I haven't been doing, I'm feeling much less guilty now.
Well, at least, yeah. So let's say that you wanted to start doing a lot of stretching. You wouldn't necessarily be able to use that new range of motion because of what you just said about your brain being wired to run a certain way. So you might not even be. It might not be helpful to your running. Obviously, it's going to be helpful to your flexibility. But
I mean, what I find in practical terms is I'll get sore in a spot and I'll stretch, and the soreness will go away. Then I'll get sore in the same spot again. I'll stretch, and the soreness will go away. I'll get sore in the same spot again, and
in
it
between,
never changes because whatever's causing the issue, I'm not dealing with it really, which is exactly what you're telling me.
Yeah, that's actually what Dicharry says a lot in his book. It's about doing the exercises, and not just doing them when we're injured, but all the time.
Yeah, therein lies the big challenge, I think. Okay, so we have a rationale. It looks like to me there are 3 parts to the book. There's the rationale, then there's the exercises for establishing your performance, and then there are the sort of rewiring drills and workouts in section 3. So section 2, on the precision and performance exercises, can you talk to us a bit about that, Liz?
Yep. So both section 1 and 2 are kind of they both explain things. Section 1 was more about the diagnosis, and then section 2 has more of the exercises, and he explains like why you would do certain groups of exercises. So there are like two groups of exercises basically. There is kind of also the plyometrics, which is sort of a third group, but precision exercises are generally exercises that are not really that hard. They're more neurologically difficult. For example, there's one that I'm doing from one of the plans, and it's really like it just looks really easy. And for some reason, on one side, I have such a hard time doing it. And that's the whole purpose of the precision exercises, is because it's teaching your body to move in the ways that you're going to need to move when you're running. And part of that is neurological, and to make the right connections so that we fire our muscles in the right way to be able to move that way. And sometimes you look at the exercises and you're like, oh, that doesn't look very hard, because it's not hard in the traditional sense, like lifting a really heavy weight. But then you try and do it and you realize that, let's say you're really wobbly, or you can do it really well on one side but not the other. And one of the things that I found really hard.
What was the exercise, if you're happy
uh,
to tell
the
us?
The one that I find, the band drive through. So it's like, so you're standing and you have a rubber band around one thigh, and it has to be hooked on somewhere behind you. And basically what you're doing is you're kind of with the leg that the band is not around, you're kind of driving it up into like a 90-degree, as if you were running, and then bringing it back down behind you, and then doing that again. And meanwhile, the leg with the band around it, it's supposed to, like, you're supposed to sort of drive your hips forward. And one side is just really difficult, and the other side is getting pretty easy. So it's really strange, because the exercise itself is not that hard, and it's just an elastic band. It's not like a heavy weight. There's nothing special about it, but it's just difficult. And the same thing was when I first did toe yoga. So toe yoga was
Toe
when you
yoga.
toe yoga. So I'm not even sure if it's in the book, but
I know.
Jay Dicharry
Yeah,
has.
it is in the book. I
Okay.
remember reading it. I'm pretty sure. Because I mean, I know about toe yoga, but probably our listeners
Yeah.
don't know what's toe yoga.
So toe yoga is basically you're sitting on a chair, and you've got your foot on the ground. And what
People who are listening can actually follow along and do this exercise as you explain it.
yes,
That's
they
cool.
can. They can. And then, so with your foot on the ground, what you want to do is lift only your big toe, lift it up, and then bring it back to the floor. And then you're going to lift your 4 little toes all at the same time, and then bring them back down. But the big toe, while you're lifting your little toes, should maintain contact with the ground. And it was actually the first time I tried it, was like, I thought I had pretty good, dexterity with my feet. Like, you'd sometimes do those exercises for plantar fasciitis where you scrunch a towel or those kinds of things. And so I thought I wasn't all that bad. But like this toe yoga, for some reason, I don't know, there was one foot, and I can't remember if it was the left or the right, but one foot, I just like it. I don't know, the connection for my 4 toes to go up and down without the big toe being, going with it.
That's what I found.
I couldn't.
One of my feet didn't work.
Yeah, it took so much concentration, and I think it took a few days. Like, it took a few days, and finally I was like, oh, I did it once. But yeah, it was quite difficult. And so those are the type of exercises that he calls like in the precision group. So they're not necessarily difficult in terms of weight or
It's more
strength.
mental rewiring.
Yeah, yeah,
mentally readjusting.
exactly. And then
I
he
think I
has
think I think he talks about plasticity of your brain. So you're teaching your brain to do a control that it wasn't doing before.
exactly. Yep. So those are the precision type of exercises, and then the performance exercises are more the ones that are for strength. So you have like the deadlifts and the squats with barbells and things like that. So those are kind of the two big categories. And then he does have also this is once you get to the third section of the book with the programs in it. He's got some plyometric kind of things, which I guess would go into more into performance. Um, but they're considered more advanced exercises from what I understand. So you would, and apparently you don't do them like weights. Like, so he says every week you should be doing both precision and performance exercises, but when you're 6 weeks out from your race, then your performance exercises, you can switch them to the plyometric type of exercises, but you wouldn't do the plyometric type exercises all year round, from what I understood. Because I tried to work this into my existing plan. So uh, so there was a section saying sort of how to use the because he has quite a few plans, and I just basically chose one that I had the equipment available. That was pretty much my criteria. Was, can I do this in my basement? Yes. Okay, so I'll choose this one.
Yeah, in the third section, he seems to have 15 different workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And these use all the other, a combination of all the other exercises that he's given you, like plyometrics and different types of force. And the programs are depending on whether you want to do precision or whether you want to do strength or the last ones where you need to be doing them leading up to runs are more power based.
Yeah, so I see that here. There's actually 3 of them. Performance power workouts is what he calls them, and they're more explosive. So
I guess if you have something specific that you've diagnosed in section 1, you could do sort of some, I don't know, hip precision drills or foot precision drills or whatever it is that and then you would do a workout which incorporates those.
yeah, and the whole second section is basically because the last section is really the the workouts he puts together and how to use them. So the second section really has like the individual exercises. So basically, when you're in the last section, if you're doing, let's say I was doing performance prep, which was one of the performance workouts, and if you forgot, like, because really when you're in in the the actual plan, sort of, it only gives you the description and how many reps he wants you to do, and then there's 2 pictures showing you the exercise. And a lot of them, like, I mean, I did weight training before, so like some of them with 2 photos, I remember what it is, because it's
Yeah.
like some of these, I mean, deadlifts are classic. I mean, I think every plan I've ever had deadlifts in it, so that's not really a new exercise. But some of them I had to go back to the section 2 and actually read the description of what you're doing as a movement. So that's more what section 2 was. He has it kind of broken down into into sections like horizontal force, and then you have all the different exercises for horizontal force, and you'll have really the description of the movement, and you'll still only have usually 2 pictures, which is pretty funny, because there was one exercise that I ended up seeing on one of his videos that he produced. And I wasn't doing it right at all, because this was an exercise that I was not really familiar with. I'd never done this before, and it was in one of the precision plans. So they're called foot screws. And these foot screws, so I read the description and I was sure I was doing what the description said. And then like there were 2 photos, which, is maybe not that helpful. And it's when I saw the video that I realized that I was not doing the right thing at all, because he had this video on YouTube. Not all of the plans are on video, but the performance prep is, and I think that was where, in the performance prep plan, which he has the video online of a girl doing all of the exercises. So you get to the foot screws, and so she starts doing the foot screws, and I realized like that was not what I was doing at all.
So if you decide certain exercises are for you, they may be perfectly clear from there's a lot of photographs in the book, so they may be perfectly clear from the photographs, or if they're not, I guess you can go and look for a video on YouTube. What I liked is on the side next to the photographs, it would have tips. So it would say, don't do this because you have a tendency to do this, and it will spoil the exercise, and try to focus on this thing. So it does try to give you some tips to do the exercise correctly, but a video is much better of showing you exactly how it works than a few photographs. Mostly, I think if you know the exercises, a couple of photographs seem to work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like most of these are not like reinvented or anything. I mean, they're exercises that people have probably done if they've been at a gym before, or if they've had I had weight training programs done by the strength coach at Concordia when I was running with Concordia. So like she would, everybody kind of recycles the same exercises for runners. There's the classics like you almost always have to do push-ups, and you almost always have to do deadlifts and squats, one leg deadlifts, those kinds of things.
Speak for yourself. I've just learned how to do a deadlift, and just had some postural correction notes given to me for my squats in the last couple of months.
Oh, okay.
I'm no spring chicken, so to each his own.
Okay. Well, I guess in my experience, because I did have the luxury of having someone that gave us a plan and watched us do the exercises the first couple times, we had a live demonstration. It wasn't just like you were given a piece of paper and they let you go to the gym after. They would, we always had at the beginning of the season, someone would give us the plan, but then she would be going over each exercise and showing us what it actually is, and we would try and do it. And then, so we would have like one gym session like that. It was only one. So sometimes after, when you went back to the gym the next week and you started doing the exercises on your own, you forgot some of them, which is where your teammates come in handy.
I guess like anything, Dicharry will give you a workout program. You'll need to look at it carefully and practice. Probably.
Yeah. Then I liked that he had some of his plans online in video form that I could go check. And it just so happened that it was the one that I had chosen because I had all the equipment in my basement, that was the one that was on YouTube, but he doesn't have all of them on YouTube, which I was a little sad about. But it could be because the book is relatively new. Maybe it'll come out later. This is my wishful thinking.
In section 3, when he talks about some of the workouts and says, particularly the workouts 7 through 15, the strength and power workouts, where he's trying to help you to condition to, put more force onto the ground with the strength, and then in power, put that force on more quickly and release. So reduce your contact with the ground, but put more power into the running as you do it. He gives the programs, and I'm looking through some of the programs. I haven't done any yet, but they look pretty tough. Have you or your partner Andre I know you have a gym in your basement, a little home gym. Have you tried any of these
Yeah,
workouts?
so
Do you have any experience with them?
yes, we actually tried, we did one of them together. So we did do this workout number 7, which was performance prep. The other ones, I think, because we don't have kettlebells and some of the other ones had kettlebells. Even this one had a kettlebell exercise. We just used a dumbbell for it. But we did try it, and we were, even though, because our gym equipment is limited, so it's not like we have all the sizes of dumbbells or anything, so you just make do with what you have. And let's say in an actual gym, I've done kettlebell swings before, and I can usually do kettlebell swings with like probably at least a 50-pound kettlebell, but I don't have a 50-pound kettlebell at home. And so I was doing it with like a 35-pound dumbbell, which I was swinging and holding onto one end. Yeah, we were still sore anyway. So I think it's the exercise, not always the amount of weight. And the fun thing about doing it with a partner is that they can kind of see if you're doing the exercise right, because then that's the other thing, like if you don't have a mirror in your basement to sort of see if you're doing it the same way on both sides. A lot of these are one leg exercises, like the deadlifts. They're landmine single leg deadlifts, so it's one leg at a time, but if you're not careful, you could potentially do them differently on each side, because you might have different weaknesses. So that was fun. Like we both did that one, and we kind of took turns with the exercises and watched each other do them, and we were both sore for 2 days after. So I would say that it's pretty good. And they have these push-ups. That instead of just doing a regular push-up where I have like my arms out like chicken arms kind of thing like this, then they make you keep your elbows close to your body.
Oh, that's like yoga.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so much harder than regular push-ups. 10 push-ups. I mean, I can do 10 push-ups in my sleep usually. And these when I try and keep my elbows to the side, I have a hard time getting to 10, and I'm super sore for 2 days after. Luckily, it's my upper body, so it doesn't influence my running.
Okay, so you've tried working through the workouts, and what you would say is they are tough, reasonably tough, but doable. Are they really technical, or are they relatively easy?
Some of them are a bit technical. I mean, I guess an exercise is as hard as you make it in some ways, but in other ways it's not. Like there's this one exercise that he calls thread the needle plank. And so you're basically doing a plank, but instead of being, when you're in a plank position, usually we're on our elbows, like on our forearms as our support. So instead you're like in a push-up position. So you're on your hands, and then you have an elastic band that's attached to something, and you're threading it through underneath you. So like you'll be basically balancing on one hand and your 2 feet. So you don't have all 4 points of contact,
and then you're pulling in a resistance or an elastic underneath your body. With your other hand.
Exactly. And it's actually harder than it looks. And you're supposed to do 20 reps. I think the first time I had a hard time doing 10. And I don't even know, I think my form was probably terrible, but like I had a hard time doing 10. Now I can do, I can do 20 with difficulty. I can do 20. So it's progress. So I guess maybe it's part of what he was saying about the neurological, maybe there was some pathway that I was not using, or
So you're keeping with it, are you? Because you said now I can do 20. So
now it can
obviously
do
you're
20.
you're you're keeping with some of this program. So do you have any feedback on sort of the usefulness of it? Are you finding
So
benefit, or are you just exhausted all the time?
I mean, I try and do weight training twice a week. I'm not always. It doesn't always happen twice a week. Sometimes I
Okay.
end up doing once a week, and then it just doesn't fit in the rest of the time because I'm doing too much running, which is actually another thing that Jay Dicharry says. He says that most of us would be better off skipping some of the run to do some strength work or precision work instead.
Oh yeah, you're right. He says running more is not better. He says that in the introduction, doesn't he? Says,
I think
if you
so.
train harder and harder and harder, and run more and more and more, well, you'll just get better and better and better. Wrong, because what you're potentially doing is just reinforcing bad form, which is inefficient, um, and you'll be better off correcting that and running less in order to correct it.
Yeah, so I haven't quite been following his advice, I guess, because sometimes I do my run and then there's no more time to do the exercises because I have to go to work, or or because like I'm hungry, and so
Shame
I
on you for being a human being. We can't all be superheroes. It's tough to
I
fit
guess
everything
not.
in sometimes.
But I mean, they're not that long really. Once you know the exercises and you know what you're doing, in terms of like what's going to come next, because once you've been doing the same plans. So what he suggests is that you do the precision work once or twice a week. I think
Okay.
his A plan, it says like what would be best is 2 days of precision and 2 days of performance exercises, which is like 4 days of training.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to fit in when you want to run all the time.
Yeah.
So I've done
Well,
I tried for I thought I would try for 1 day of precision and 2 day of performance, because I figured then I could space it out like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Uh, but I haven't really been successful with that. So far, I think I've only really been successful with like 1 day of precision and 1 day of performance when I'm lucky and I am disciplined. Sometimes I will do 2 days of precision and no days of performance. It's been a little bit all over the place, but I've been basically, when I do precision, I've been doing one of two plans, and when I do performance, I'll do usually the performance prep because that's the one that I know I have all the equipment. Uh, yeah, so I
one of the things about the precision drills that he talks about, not so much the workouts, but some of the drills, is you can do them as a dynamic. Some of the
mhm.
drills, you can do them as a dynamic warm up. So if you don't have
Yes,
time to fit in the drills, you could fit it to fit in the whole workout. You could do, a couple of the exercises as just
as
your warm up, just your stretch,
mhm.
a stretch alternate, a dynamic warm up rather than a stretch, which is just elongating a muscle, doing a little movement, which is more making the muscles work in the mode that you want to train them to work in.
Right.
And that's probably what I'll end up getting to, because I don't think I'm going to be able to do all of these drills.
Yeah, I think maybe that's a good idea. Um, you know, and I am better at doing like drills before run workouts. Like let's say if you're doing like a track, I feel the benefit of that. So I think I would probably be more consistent. But I'm usually, I don't know. I don't know what it is these days, but I used to be really good at doing weight training twice a week, and I would do it. I'd fit it in, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I was a student, so I had all this time before class, because class only started at like 9 and work starts at 8, so I have 1 hour less.
Maybe Jay Dicharry is going to get you back into it. Certainly, I'm retired from work now, so I've got a bit more time. And reading his book, I found that, hey, there's something here in terms of, I don't feel that my running is optimal at all in terms of mobility. And as I get older, I think it's probably going to get worse, if it could possibly get worse. But I think it sort of speaks to me in terms of I need to invest a little bit of time in, and there are a couple of things where I could fix up some of my mobility issues. Um, it, and it would be worthwhile. So his book is kind of motivating me to stay with. I started as you know, I started a cross training session once a week,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of maintaining my strength. And I think reading Jay's book, I'm now going, okay, so these things in cross training, these are the ones I should be using for these reasons for my mobility. And now I'm starting to focus. So from that point of view, um, it's a great book in terms of getting you to think about your specific running mobility and your needs, and what you could select to do that might help you,
Mm-hmm.
you as an individual. And of course, then you've got to fit it in with your time as a human being, with other things to do.
Yeah, but I find that when you were telling me about what your trainer was making you do in CrossFit, it actually sounded like most of these exercises were kind of what he was making you do as well.
Yeah, but I was just doing them because he was telling me. He says, "Get down,
Uh,
do the push-ups." Okay, yes, sir, yes, sir. But now I'm going, okay, these things I know where they're targeting.
so you're more motivated then.
So I'll go, these are the things I need to do, and these are the things. Yes, I'm going to have big, strong arms, but no, I'm never going to have big, strong arms. But I'm going to have little, feeble, but a little bit stronger arms. But it's probably not going to help my running mobility, or maybe it is. Certainly, I see my whole body as a running machine rather than my legs. Having read
Yeah.
Jay's book.
So what do you find? Because I mean, although you haven't really tried Jay's programs, but a lot of the exercises you've been doing are the same ones that he talks about in the book. And because you were doing exactly zero strength training before, and now you're doing once a week for.
Yes, I might even be doing 2 sessions a week at the moment because I've gone from live sessions to online sessions.
And then
So
do you feel a difference? Have you
yeah,
noticed
I
anything?
feel sore first of all, but
Oh.
um, I think it's a little early yet. But I think I feel like I'm a bit more connected, if that's sort of a thing. Um, I feel more, I've got a bit more core strength. Um, I'm very conscious of where my hips are in the process. Um, I feel like my glutes are showing up to contribute um, a little bit more, and I'm very conscious as well of the mobility in one of my ankles. I'm working on that, um, to to um, to get away from, I think, the start of a plantar problem.
Oh
Um,
no.
so so there's all, but I think I'm not going to get that problem, and I'm going to be able to train through, because of some of the exercises that I'm doing. Um, so there's loads of good things in there, but in the meantime, I'm then going out and running, and going, oh, I'm a bit tired because um, I've overworked my hamstrings, and they're not available to help me out a little.
And they're sore for 3 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the price to pay. So you have to keep the faith, I think, with
Hmm.
training programs. A bit like marathon training, you have to believe in the process.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're never going to run your marathon in the workout, so you're not going to know if you'll really be able to put it together. You just have to believe that you're going to
So
put it
so we've
together.
we've kind of drifted into it generally, but let's specifically talk about what we think about the book, how it's laid out, what's good about it, what's bad about it. Um, we've obviously talked a bit about the benefits that we can maybe get out of it, but overall, how do we feel about it? I mean, what I would say is I, I notice it's a Velo Press book, and those guys at Velo Press seem to be producing good quality. Not in terms of the what's in it in terms of written, but just the way it's produced. Um, the typeface, the photographs. It's just a nice book
Yeah,
as a piece of material. Um, and it's not the first time I've said that. I think about Velo Press. It's a nicely produced book. It's
I
very easy
agree.
to pick up and flip through, and read sections. Um,
Yeah, I
so
enjoy the sections. I like that the way that it flows. So I like the sort of the first section. I like the description. I like to know the how, the why of each exercise. So I kind of enjoyed that. And of course the plans, putting it all together, because I think that sometimes like sometimes books will either give you all the why and how of doing things but then not put it together for you, so you kind of finish the book being like, okay, now what do I do with all this information? Whereas he sort of gives you all this information but then puts it together for you at the end in these little programs that you can follow. So that's kind of
yeah, he builds the whole thing up.
Mhm.
He tells you what he's going to do at the start, and then builds it all up and write it all the way through until you get to the end. Um, he's clearly an expert. There's quite a bibliography at the end if you're a nerd, which I know you are, Liz. Um, if you're a nerd for that sort of stuff, and you go, oh, I'm not too sure. He actually quotes, studies and references where he gets his information from. So he's not inventing this. There's no snake oil involved. It's pretty well based on research and data, and you can be confident of that
And
from
he's
the book.
not giving you a one size fits all kind of thing. He's really, this
For me, that's the brilliant thing about the book, and
yeah.
probably why, because I read your book and you loaned it to me, probably why I'll go out and buy it afterwards, because there's a recipe in it for me.
Hmm.
Probably that's one of the great things. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not a one size fits all, as you say. What else did you find out about the book? What do you think's good? What do you think's maybe not so good? Let's talk about the good things first, because we'll have loads to say about that probably.
Yeah, so I think I said most of it. I enjoyed having the plans at the end. I liked that he sort of said how to use the plans, because there are about 15 of them, as we've mentioned before, like 15 different little programs. So like I like that before he went into what you should use when. So that was quite good. And yeah, the pictures in the exercises I enjoyed as well,
Yeah, I like
because
the photos, because I think if you know the exercise, or you just need a reminder, is that the one where you don't bend your knees, or is that the one where
hmm
you get one picture and that tells you, and you go, yeah, okay, yeah, snap, I know what I'm doing. Um, that's great. And I think if you don't know the exercise, a few photos are not going to help you. You probably need to go, okay, what is XYZ exercise and get that off YouTube. But mostly I found that the exercises were clear from the photographs, and the photographs are nicely done. And as I said, the tips on the side. By the way, when you're doing this exercise, don't do this or think about this. That's pretty cool. The layout we've talked about. I think the good things is it builds up an individualized program. Anything we didn't like?
I don't think I would say I didn't like this. I just think it's maybe a little bit of a disclaimer. I think that if you've never ever done weight training, there's still benefit to sort of having somebody maybe watch you do these exercises, or someone that'll put a plan together for you at first, and then afterwards, you can sort of choose programs, and you learn over time how to maybe choose your next plans, or after you've done a few plans, the exercises, a lot of them are similar, so you know what they are, and you've done them before, so I think that it's still kind of a difficult thing to say, like, anyone can pick up this book and start doing weight training. I think that this is kind of a manual maybe for somebody that's a little bit that's had some experience, because I think it's hard to really do an exercise well if you've never done any weight training at all.
I agree with that. I think my version of that is, if you look at the sort of self-diagnosis exercises, they're pretty good, and you could do those, and you get more insight into your own body, how it's aligned. There's an alignment check there, and like that sort of confirmed to me that one of my knees doesn't go in a straight alignment with one of my feet, and then that'll govern how you might do an exercise, like a squat, for example, where you might put your feet in your knees when you're doing squats. So you can, I think the book's great in terms of diagnosing and then looking at what drills might be specifically good to help you rewire your brain from a running point of view. But then when you try and put those into drills and weight training type exercises where you might lift heavy weights, my advice was it would be that you always need an expert to show you how to do that properly, so you don't hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that being said, I mean, I think that if Jay Dicharry's practice was in Montreal, I would definitely, after reading this, be very curious to go and see him and like have him diagnose me, and
you bet.
have him.
You bet.
I would so go and see him. But unfortunately, he's too far away, so that'll never happen. And so we have this great book that we can use to diagnose ourselves, and we can use the plans in it. And he does have another book as well, so I'm really excited to read the first book, which from what I understand, the first book was a lot more theory, and the second book is more like a how-to sort of it's kind of more like a user manual, I guess, which is sort of what it was like. Just tells you how to diagnose yourself and then what exercises to do to correct it. So it's whereas the first book, from what I understand, is going to be more theory. And once I read it, then I'll tell you all about it.
Okay, that's the Anatomy of a Runner, I think. Is it?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Like yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oregon's a long way from where we are. We're talking in Montreal, Canada. But if Jay listens to us and wants to invite us over to his lab, we'd be happy to go. We'd both work out how to get there a bit.
Probably. Or if he wants to just set up a new lab in Montreal, I mean, there's a lot of runners here.
Yeah. So who would this book appeal to? I think we've talked a little bit about, you'll need to know how to do some weights at the end. Who I mean, I guess I never knew the book before I picked it up, and it appealed to me because I was looking to improve my running, not by doing more miles, but by trying to be smarter about how I run. So I guess, given that it appealed to me from that point of view, anybody who's looking to run smarter, not necessarily harder, in order to get better results, it would probably appeal to that kind of person.
I
People
think
who
anybody
know how to do weight drills and stuff like that, it would probably appeal to them.
Yeah, I think also anybody that's sort of maybe plateaued or feels like they're plateauing in their running and are thinking of adding something and don't do any strength training. So this might be, it
A motivation.
first, yeah, it'll convince them definitely why they should be doing strength training, and then that could serve as motivation to do strength training, and it could potentially help your running in the future, I think.
Okay, cool. So what's our rating? How would you like to rate it?
So I would definitely give it, if we're talking 5 stars, I would give it 5, because it's got a nice layout. It's very clear. The writing, the language is clear. It explains why the things that they do are important. It's got pictures. I mean, it puts everything together in a nice little package at the end, being the workouts and how to use those workouts. So I think it was very well thought out, and I would, it kept me interested throughout the book, even though it's a bit of a how-to manual, but at the same time, like, there was a lot of interesting information, and my boyfriend Andre even read it, which, like, he's not a big book
My
reader.
God.
And he's not a big book reader, and so that he was the one in the evening that said, "Oh, do you want to just do some reading?" Like, that was an indicator that this book has something to offer, because he was that interested. So I think that just that in itself probably speaks for itself. I mean, I like reading. I like reading about running. So, this, yeah, definitely gets 5 stars, I would say.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think in terms of how it's produced and laid out and explained, and the language and the just the production of the book, the photographs, etc. It's a really nice book. Encourages you to read it. So I'd give it 5 for that. I think in terms of the content and the feasibility, I think you have to arrive into the content prepared to commit to doing something, because it's a how-to book. So it's a little like, well, I'm going to read a manual on how to fix my lawnmower, but afterwards I'm not going to bother with fixing my lawnmower. You kind of go, well, what use is that? So what I found a bit was you need a bit of equipment for some of the exercises, resistant elastics or weights, which means you need access to a gym, or you need some of that stuff in your own home. And if you don't have that, it's going to slow you down a bit. What I found is I've stutter stepped, because I can do some drills, but some exercises, but not complete drills because I don't have all the equipment. And from that point of view, just from a technical point of view, I would give it maybe 4.5, 4.5 for that. Having said that, I found it super readable, and I borrowed your copy to read so we could have this discussion, and I've made a note to go out and get my own copy because it spoke to me, it gave me some individual things, and I want to further commit to try to deliver on improving those things for myself. So if it can make your partner Andre read, and it can make me go out and buy the book, that's got to be a good recommendation from us.
I agree. And I think even if you don't yet have gym equipment or you've never done weights, reading about why it's important and what it can do for you, I think is a good motivator. And, it might just motivate you to take that next step and incorporate some strength training in your running.
So I guess we could probably summarize it at the end with a little word from Jay, who basically says, all the workouts he gives you, if you practice them over time, it will help to use the plasticity in your brain to adjust and develop changes in terms of your running approach for basically an improved running capability. And eventually you will be rewired for success. So let's hope we're all going to go out there and get a bit rewired for a bit more success. Any last words, Liz?
No, I think we've covered everything, and happy reading.
Good luck, everyone. Until next time, bye for now.